Good afternoon, good evening from myself here at Toga. I am going to be commentating on your race tonight. We are at Suzuka for the latest round of the Porsche Cup. So GT3 Cup cars, 992 GT3 Cup cars at Suzuka. Times are looking pretty hot already. 202.512 is the current pole sitter of Steiner. Apologies for being a little bit late starting. There were some technical glitches, which is always fun. But we're all working and all good now. Hopefully all are well on the other end. And we shall see some good racing as it was last time out. Let me just grab the various chat boxes. And welcome everybody in. So yes, it is the latest round of the Porsche Cup. How are we doing and how are people doing? Luke Wilson's out there on a improving lap. Let's go to them. 2.3 up, the gap is 2.0, 0.35 and climb up, and the gap is 0.203. So that's going to be one to. We'll follow this one through to the end, given that that is about to potentially be a very swift lap from that car. Has dropped a little bit of time, but gains it back, runs wide through the first of the two Degners, and then is good and clean on the exit of the second, up to the hairpin now. Suzuka being actually the only. I was about to say something very interesting about the circuit. Being the only figure of eight based circuit in most that has I believe it's a grade 1 license. So that's a good one. Marek down in 7th is also on an improvement. Olaf Nikolai is on an improvement, but it's not a legal lap. Let's jump back to Wilson as they are 3 tenths up now on their current lap. Catching up with a little bit of back marker there, as we can see in the start. Takes loads of curve, really confident with that car over there. And that was a bit too far, that was track limits. That is looking like the final lap that he had is out and done. It was looking really, really good up until that point. It was going to be several tenths, about half a second up as they come across the line to complete that one. But unfortunately, it's not going to be legal. 130R doing its usual thing of catching people out. So, that is the end of qualifying. As things sit, we are sat there with a 202.512 that stood from Steiner. Then it is Wilson with a 202.715, followed by Hannock with a 203.050. Holzer 203.217. Werner with a 204.260. Then there is Nikolai with 204.302. Marek, and everybody has just jumped off. So yeah, Marek from Elantra, from Vernon, A Vernon. We have R Vernon and A Vernon. Let's just hit drive and we can see who Alec and Raf. Awesome. And we have Jasper Wiesenberg as well there, rounding out the full 10 car grid that we have. Do a Yep, there we go. That is the back of the grid. As we look up and do a quick fly up through, we've got a couple of minutes before the race starts. So that is your grid. The time's pretty consistent, pretty good from everybody. Temperature-wise, 18 air, 25 track temperature. That's, as usual, going to be a challenge with these cars. Having the higher track temperature is going to chew the rear tyres on these cars a fair bit. Whilst there is an even number of left and right-handed corners on this track, the majority of the harder corners are actually on the left-hand side of the car. So the longer, harder corners, are all on the... I need to look at track map for a second. But there are a little bit more weight onto one car. Yes, we did see that possum. Invalid 2021. Mike isn't... Why is Mike not working? It's coming up there. I can turn it up. Okay, cool. All working. I might shuffle my mic around a little bit. Let's put that up there so I can still see the circuit, but hopefully that might be a bit better. Should put it up over there, do that. There we go. Let's try that. So that's a bit more in the middle of the screens rather than off to the opposite side to where I'm looking. So yeah, that's all of the runners and riders. 25 seconds before the rolling lap, for the warm-up lap. Obviously, it's a rolling start, no tyre warmers, so that's going to be an important one here. It's making sure your tyres are up to temperature before you start. So yes, we shall see what happens. Not a huge grid, but like I said, you only need 2 cars to have a race. How drag racing works, as we are down and away for a formation lap, as Steiner goes out. Kevin Steiner is out for Petrol Brothers Racing to lead them away. 30 minutes on the clock. It's long double apex turn 1. Tightens up, unlike a lot of tracks where the corners actually open as you go through them. This turn 1 actually tightens as you go through it, and then you go into this long sweeping set of S's. Track originally was built for motorcycle racing. Unlike circuits like Valencia and Misano, it surprisingly doesn't feel like it. But it was designed to originally just kicked out of the dirt to test motorcycles way back in Japanese history. And then it's steadily morphed into what we have today with this fantastic facility and racetrack that we are on today. Out of the S's, up into the next corner. As long left-hander before you get to the 2 Degners. Goes uphill, it's really easy. The entry into this corner is surprisingly sharp. It's really easy to get it out of shape and run wide and eat the dirt. Into the first of the 2 Degners, that's a corner that eggs you on to go faster and faster through it, but you've got to remember, you've got to get slowed down for this second half of it. It's a lot tighter before that run up into the hairpin, which is the first really big braking zone on this track. Bit of a kink to the right before you turn hard left. Slow the car down, turn hard left to go through the hairpin there. And there's a long right-hander again, just all the way down here to Spoon. Again, it's up over a crest. It's easy to just not be quite paying enough attention and just run wide, or just be following the car in front that just... If you get a bit of a slide on cold tyres or heavily worn tyres, it's very easy to run wide. There's a lot of very subtle height changes in this track. Some of them not quite so subtle, as you'll see as we go down out of Spoon, which we're just dropping into now. It drops away quite steeply on the exit here, so again, it's another place that it's very easy. If It's got a surprisingly late apex, and then the car will naturally run out towards these curves as it falls away in front of you. Still 24 psi. Yep. Honestly, I wouldn't worry too much. It's going to be well clear of that before you, by the end of the S's. Marvellous, I'm sorry, that was just a message from one of the admin. So yeah, all good. We are now forming up 2x2 as they've come through 130R into this last really tight chicane. Again, you get clear of that 130R, and then it's remembering to get the car stopped. Slightly blind apex into this first part of the chicane, and then it is interesting one, slightly cambered, slightly off camber on the way in, positive camber on the way out, but it does fall. Still, there's a crest in the middle of it, and it falls away to the outside of the track, off the racing line. So again, the track has a big sting in its tail. Right at the end, it's really easy, especially if it gets wet, to end up a long way off the circuit. So we are 2x2 running down through the grid with Wilson there out wide, and we are green for this race. Steiner with a good start, Wilson holding it around the outside. Can Wilson hold Steiner down tight and make this one work? No, not quite. Now Wilson's going to be on under fire from Hanek, but manages to hold that one off. Hanek from Holzer now as we move back through the grid. Holzer is right on the tail of Hanek there. Has got to be careful because it has Raf Werner there behind, hunting down. Next little pack of cars with Marek, Nikolai and Elantra there, all close together with Wiesenberg and Werner, Alec Werner bringing up the tail nice and clean through the first corner. No major heroics from anybody. Everybody just keeping it safe. Now, we've got a little bit of a three-car breakaway at the front of this now. We've got Wilson from Steiner from Wilson from Hanek. Has just started to pull a little bit of a gap. Holzer maybe just preserving those tyres a little bit, and as that gap starts to open up. Again, this is going to be a 30-minute race in these cars. It's going to be a bit of a war of attrition on the tyres. Who's going to have what left at the end to push on? As I say, Holzer just dropping back. Hanek has dropped back a little bit from there. But Marek and Nikolai are very close together and looking to battle. Elantra has dropped off the back but has been battling with Wiesenberg. And they are side by side coming up out of Spoon and into 130R. We'll follow these two cars going through here. Who's taken their brave pills and had their Weetabix for dinner? Looks like it is Nikolai. Sticks that one out round the outside. Very well done. Nicely done from both drivers. Gave each other just enough space. Nobody ended up eating gravel there. As up ahead, that Werner to Marek to Nikolai battle is still going on. They are all switching sides, all trying to get toe off of each other as Nikolai goes round the outside of Marek, or tries to, can't quite get the car tucked in and tight into the apex to make that one work. That's given Raf Vernon a chance to pull away a little bit there from these two battling. Gap up ahead is holding relatively steady. Raf Vernon has dropped back to the tune of about 2 seconds now to the cars in front. So now that he's got a little bit clearer air with Marek and Nikolai battling in behind, they will hopefully Raf will be able to pull a little bit of a gap and try and close in on those leaders as Wiesenberg finally gets a pass into the Degners of all places. Well done, that's a brave opportunistic moment there to get past Elantra for 8th place. Now everybody is guaranteed a top 10 as long as they finish tonight, which is always a nice thing to get. So very well done there for that one. Wiesenberg has pulled away to the tune of almost a second. He is about a second back to the cars in front. Nikolai right on the tail. Hello, Mr. McGonagall. You are not in this one. I hope you are enjoying the stream from wherever you are in the world tonight, or today, tomorrow morning. I don't know if we have any other Antipodean friends watching. So yeah, gap in the middle here for 7th place between Marek and Nikolai is hotting up a little bit. They've actually caught up to Raf there in the red 992. A little bit, maybe. Although Vernon does have a lot of time to make up, as the top two are trading fastest laps. Last time across the line, Steiner in first put a 2:03.240 down, and then Wilson put a 2:03.2 flat. So 400ths of a second between them on lap time on the last time by. So very well done there. Gap started to string out a little bit, but it looks like Marek might be starting to be a bit of a cork in the bottle here for Wiesenberg and Nikolai, as Wiesenberg is trying to pull up onto the back of them, as looks like Nikolai is also a little bit held up here by these two cars, by Marek in front, but he's doing just enough to keep ahead. Now the two, Nikolai and Wiesenberg, don't want to start fighting. They want to try and do what they can to open the door to get both of them past Nikolai. So, Nikolai gets a big wiggle. This might be the opportunity they need to get past. That is Nikolai through. Can Wiesenberg carry the pace still for that missing drive? Gets tucked down right tight down to the apex. I'm not sure Marek knew that they were expecting another car to be there. Side by side through Spoon. This is really good racing. Nikolai running a little bit wide on the exit, can get the power down, does manage to hold off any further attack from Nikolai. Marek there, from Marek. Wiesenberg just tucking right in under the rear wing of Nikolai, as they're too wide into 130. Nikolai holds on to that one, a little bit wide on the exit. As Wiesenberg is still tucked up behind Marek. Marek is holding on to this one, doing everything they can. They look like they ran a little bit wide, but managed to keep it on the island, coming out the last corner. Now they have Wiesenberg right on the tail. It looks like there has been a problem for Holzer. Indeed, that was a stack in the first corner. What happened? This was Holzer and Hanek. Hanek just touches the rear of Holzer. And that sends Holzer into a bit of a half spin. Hanek did nudge them back around vaguely in a straight line. Couldn't quite hang on to it. It looks like these two here, Nikolai and Marek, are good, very good through the... Wiesenberg and Marek are very good through the S's, as Marek runs very wide there through the middle of the Degners there. We've got the pace through the S's, but can't quite catch and make up the time difference through the rest of the circuit from Nikolai. It's Nikolai just pulls out. Marek getting another wiggle on out of the hairpin there at the top of the course. But yeah, these two start fighting later on into the lap, and it just means that Nikolai can pull away. Wiesenberg right under the rear wing of Marek. Can they do anything? Out of Spoon into 130R. Bit of weaving going on, nothing too major. Touch the brakes going into 130R, and that is Wiesenberg off. Manages to keep it out the barrier, but that is a long way out of the runoff area, and that is a lot of work to do to catch back up. Now the question is, can Marek, now not under fire, do anything about Holzer, as we have... Holzer? Sorry, Holzer's in the pits, that's why I'm getting names confused. Holzer has now dropped out of this one, so that is 9 cars. So yes, can Nikolai Marek do anything to reel in that gap to Nikolai that has opened up? Werner is doing okay, recovering. Wiesenberg is almost already on the back of Elantra there, as Vernon goes... Alec Vernon goes off through the S's. I think that must have been a bit of a twitch coming through the middle of that corner. Yeah, twitch on the exit, tries to get the car swap back. The weight just doesn't want to do it, and the back end doesn't stick. Gets a big drift in, just kisses the barrier, so I don't think there's going to be any major damage there. But that has gained Wiesenberg a place back. Gap at the front, still close as ever. 2:03.187 now is the fastest lap for Luke Wilson, half a second back from Steiner. These two have pulled away to the tune of 5.5 seconds to the cars behind, and that gap is only opening out. So we'll check back in on a regular basis with those two. We also have this Nikolai Marek battle buried in the middle of the pack for 5th and 6th. That gap of about half a second. Ooh, looks like Steiner had a little bit of a moment on the exit of 130R. Who's got what going through the last chicane? Wilson looks to have got a marginally better drive. Looks like they might be just picking up the last vestiges of the tow down the pit straight. It's not the longest, but it's not short by any stretch. Wilson just a bit braver into turn 1, and there can just tuck up under the rear wing. The last thing I think Wilson needs to get past before anything major happens to those front tyres, because they're just going to get chewed and chewed and chewed under the rear wing of that of the car in front. As we are 11 minutes into this 30-minute race. That's been quite a lot happening already. Vernon into the pits. Don't know whether they picked up damage or whether they have just parked it due to the deficit that they picked up. Let's have a quick look. They have been stopped. That looks like an RTG. 2 minutes ago. Did not see what that was. Hope that must have been a pretty big hit to have done that. Might see them back out, but that will literally just be to complete the race, as Wilson is now right under the rear wing, inside a 0.1 of a second there on Steiner. Steiner runs in very deep into Spoon, tries to outbrake Wilson, outbrakes themselves, and that is Wilson through. Nicely done. It is largely mistakes like that that are what make you the places. Now Wilson has largely been faster most of the time, although with last time by managed to 2:03.002, with Steiner managing a 2:03.087 as well. So Wilson feeling the need to go a little bit defensive into that first half of the chicane. I'm wondering if that wasn't entirely needed, as Steiner was a bit far back. Doesn't seem to have compromised their exit out of the corner at all. Does seem to be clear of the worst of the tow with Steiner. Now Wilson has the tricky bit. He's been following Steiner since the start of this race. He needs to know where his braking points are and not just running off of where Steiner has been stopping, to make sure he hits his marks now and tries to do his best to pull away. Obviously, being in the tow is probably what's helped with the lap times a little bit, as Nikolai and Marek have also swapped places. How did that one happen? Down the pit straight, looks like it was possibly a little bit of an outbreak moment. No, all good, all good. Either way, Marek is back through. Didn't see quite what that was. So now Steiner is on the back foot and he's going to have to try and catch back up and close that gap. It's about almost half a second is the gap between these two cars. Nikolai and Marek are not giving this one up at all, and definitely throwing everything they've got. Nikolai a little bit better. Oh, Ola gets Marek gets a big wiggle on, manages to avoid any further contact between anybody else. Marek got a big twitch on the exit of that one and has got away up the road, but Nikolai took a big hit to the side of Marek and then bounced off and into the barrier, so that's a lot of damage for that car. Marek's not going to be in the best of states. He's now very much under fire from Elantra. That car probably has a chunk of damage that it doesn't want to have. Hopefully the suspension damage isn't too bad and it's merely aero. So it will hopefully drive in a straight line. But it looks like Elantra has made up another place with the issues there. It looks like we might have lost a car. Looks like Nikolai is still there. We're down to 8 cars. We've lost another one and I didn't see which one that was. Everything jumped around all of a sudden. That might have been a disconnect. It might have been something else. There we go. Right. As we catch up. Sorry, I had to have a little bit of a cough there. As Steiner is starting to drop back. I'm wondering if Steiner has just pushed a little bit too hard trying to keep up. Trying to keep Wilson behind, but also whether they have overdriven their car a little bit. So I'm going to jump back to this Elantra-Marek battle, as this is very much where the fight is at the moment. Through the Degners, Elantra gets a big slide. Holds it together but is slow off the exit. Well done for keeping that together, but we've just passed the halfway mark. That is going to take a big toll on your rear tyres on this track. I mean, these are standard issue Porsches. They have the engine hanging out the arse end of these things. It will still do Porsche things. It has ABS, but it doesn't have traction control. So yeah, that is exactly what they will do, and that has dropped Elantra now. I think just trying to cool those rears off a little bit. A drop back to the tune of almost a second now. Steiner is just hovering around that same kind of mark, about three quarters of a second back now, as they cross the line with a 203.256 for Wilson. Steiner actually goes slightly faster by a few tenths. 203.0252. Sorry, 203.025 last time by for Steiner. So does close that gap in a little bit after last on the previous lap. So maybe some inroads to be made there. Elantra is closing in fast on the back of Marek. Marek, I think, is struggling a little bit with whatever damage is on that car. As Elantra has caught back up and is closing through the S's section. Steiner has lost a chunk more time to Wilson. The time they had made up has all but gone away with what I'm presuming was a little bit of a mistake through the Degners and a big slide on the exit of the hairpin. So that is a man on a mission to try and catch the car in front, but I think they might be overdriving it a little bit and just need to chill out to try and make that gap up. I know you're listening, Wilson. This is probably going to be music to your ears, knowing that Steiner is clearly pushing and not doing amazingly well at holding on to the back of you. Is now out to almost a second again, as Elantra has opened that gap up as well from Marek being now almost a second up the road as well. So we've passed the halfway mark. We're almost in. We're 11 minutes 40 to go now. So everybody just starting to hope for the best. Elantra goes a little bit deep on the brakes there. And Marek has opened that gap up a bit further. So that looks like that one is done. We have Vernon in 8th there, 5 laps down. That is an unfortunate end to their race. Looks like they're not going to be back out for this one. So we jump back to the battle at the front. Steiner has done quite a good job of closing that gap back now to Wilson. That gap, 0.3, 0.4 of a second. This race is not done between these two. 0.3 now as they're coming through the last of the S's. Out through that long right-hander into the Degners. Who's got what coming through here and able to carry what speed? Wilson a little bit wider than, a little bit rougher and a little bit wider than Steiner through there. Steiner a little bit tidier, but actually loses out ever so slightly to Wilson there. A gap opens up to about half a second. We're only talking tenths at a time, but these are identical cars. It is purely down to setup and driver skill to muscle these cars around. Elantra now is closing back in on Marek. Marek is only about half a second up the road as they come through the exit of the Degners, where we've seen Elantra running wide again. Elantra previously had a big slide, but does manage to keep the time coming down vaguely. It's opened back out in the brakes. Evidently not quite as confident in the brakes, into the hairpin, but does manage to put a little bit back on the exit. That gap to Steiner is opening back up now. Wilson just opening that gap just a hair through the latter part of this lap to Steiner. So obviously Wilson not quite as happy through the early part of this lap. And Wilson not quite as happy through the latter part of this lap with their two cars. 9 minutes 20 to go. It does now look like the Olaf Werner has now bailed on this one. After whatever incident they had. I hope they are okay and everybody has all their digits intact if they're running a direct drive wheel. Again, that gap comes down to half a second or so through these S's to Wilson. Wilson evidently not quite as happy with that car through the early part of this lap. Holds it around half a second, but we'll follow this race and we'll follow this gap to see who has what come at the end of the lap. Can Steiner manage to do anything to hold that half-second gap or so that they currently have to Wilson and maybe capitalise on it? Although it does look like Wilson, that car may be trimmed out just a little bit more, so it's a little bit happier through these high-speed corners in comparison to Steiner there. That gap is ebbing and flowing massively. It looks like Elantra may have had some problems. Judging by the timing screens, that gap now out to 1.5 or so seconds to Marek. So that's not great. More to the point, Wilson has had an absolutely stonking run out of Spoon to the tune of nearly a second on Steiner there for this battle for the lead. Right, how are we doing? Lap times across the board. Wilson was faster that lap, 2:03.697, plays 2:03.850 last time by. Wilson still has the fastest lap of the race. That's probably going to stand without some spectacular heroics for somebody going into the pits and just going for fastest lap at this point, with no fuel and fresh tyres. with just under 7 minutes to go, that's a tall order to get the tyres up to temperature and manage to get a lap in. More to the point, get a clean lap in around this track. It's not easy. So yeah, that gap hasn't really closed in like it has done previously. That gap now out to about a second. It's just continuing to open up. I wonder if Steiner has now started to push the car too far, too hard, or is just trying to save something in the tyres for a last couple of lap push to the end, towards the very latter stages of this race, as we are down to 6 minutes to go now. Whew. Who says you need a lot of cars to have an exciting race? This has been somewhat impressive. As I say, I think everybody's just opening up the gaps and just consolidating what they've got so far. As they say, this looks to be the only real major potential battle going on up at the front between Luke Wilson in car 420 and Kevin Steiner in car 113. Yes, they are going through the S's. Steiner taking a lot of early curb on that second part of the last chicane there. Manages to just put a little bit more in. Yeah, Steiner's just not quite got the pace through in a straight line without being in the toe. Wilson's just got a bit more straight line speed down the pit straight, especially when Steiner's not in the toe. Maybe a hair of a wiggle there for Steiner through the first corner. Taking a lot more curb, a lot more risks, and a much more aggressive route. I say that as they run wide, curse the commentator, through the S's. They're just pushing that car a little bit more, a little bit harder than Wilson has been through there. See who's got what coming through the Degners now, up through this long right-hander into the first of the two. Wilson hard over the curbs, right onto track limits. It looks like Steiner's doing the same there. Nikolai has pitted as well. I don't know what this is all about, whether this was an issue or whether they may have underfueled that car. Hopefully all is well. It may also, I didn't see a drive-through. No, it's not a drive-through for track limits, which, I mean, 30 minutes would have been impressive. We were racing the other week and managed to get co-driver that we were driving with at Misano managed to get all 4 track limit warnings in 2 laps, which was genuinely impressive. As we jump to the start, that looks... just going to have a look through the timing sheets. 20 seconds stopped. 5, 6, 7. Maybe getting the damage fixed. They may have had some issues and dropped back as a result. 33. I think that car might be parked as they are about to go a lap down by Mr. Luke Wilson, who is currently our race leader. Steiner has dropped 1 place. Luke has gained a place. Lucas Hannock in 3rd has stayed where they are. Werner's gained 1. Marek's gained 3. Elantra's gained 1. Nikolai has lost 1, unfortunately. So yeah, this gap at the front, it's ebbing and flowing, but it's very much staying around this second mark. 2 minutes 40 to go. This is going to be 2 laps to go. At least 2 laps, possibly 3. Let's see how this pans out. What are we going to be? Yeah, it's going to be 2 laps to the end now for these cars. Yeah, it looks like Nikolai has parked that. No, they are back out. They were stopped for 1 minute and 14, so evidently possibly picked up a little bit more damage. Then, having said that, Steiner actually has the fastest speed trap of 266 versus 265 for Wilson, so only 1 kilometre an hour in it. but that is not bad going. Those two are by far and away the fastest cars through the speed trap. The next closest cars are 264, 264, and that is for Elantra and Hannock. Otherwise, it's 262, 261, 260 for the remainder of the cars. It looks like Steiner's just pulled that gap in a little bit towards the end of this lap. Although it runs wide through 130R, that's not going to help. That car did not want to turn in. You see what Steiner just turned in where they normally would, but the front end did not stick. And that has cost them a good few tenths there through 130R and up into the chicane. And that gap just opening back out. 1.1 now is the gap as they are starting their final lap. Just checking in on the cars in general. Elantra, I've not seen Elantra manage to put down many legal laps in this race. There's been a lot of red next to their lap, their timing on their timing sheets. I wish there was a way of actually looking that up on here. Apparently not. Never mind. So, I'm getting entirely distracted there. So, on the final lap, second between Wilson and Steiner as they are coming out of the Degners into the hairpin at the top of the course now. Unless Wilson makes a big mistake between now and the end of the lap, it's probably going to be Wilson's to lose. So that's all good. Coming through Spoon for the final time. That was a big running wide moment for Steiner. Didn't quite catch it on camera, but we will stick with Wilson for now to the end of the race. Coming down this long back straight past the spare pits for the second half of the circuit. As they go through 130. Wilson a little bit wide, hanging on to track limits just about there. 146, 47, 48. 50 seconds as they're coming through the end of the S's. Nicely clips the exit curb. Coming out of the chicanes. Runs it up against the wall, and that is a race done. Well done, Mr. Wilson. Well done, Steiner. As we see Hannock come across the line. Now, big wiggle, big sideways moment. Bit of celebration there for Hannock. Rafa Vernon, the only of the Vernon pair that we had in the race today to finish. Just coming through the S's. Now we'll see them through to the end of the race. Bring that one home. Indeed. Marek just coming through the last corner now. With Elantra. Elantra dropped back so much. Those two were battling so hard. But was 20 seconds back from Marek in the end. Possibly just pushed that car a little too hard, a little too much. And that is, according to my timing sheets, everybody now across the line. As I'm sure there will be some celebratory donuts going on for a few people on the end of that one. So very well done to all who took part in tonight. Very well done to everybody who finished. Sorry to have lost Wiesenberg, Vernon and Holzer. It's such a shame. We're seeing everybody across the line. I wish we hadn't missed that one. Do share that in the Toga Discord channel if you can manage to crop that that one, as it was Wilson and Steiner doing some tandem drifting through the S's at the end of that one. Very well done to everybody who was involved in this one. We'll give it a couple of minutes if anybody does join in for a interview. If not, we shall call it there for tonight, and we shall see how things go. So yeah, very well done. Most enjoyable racing had by all. Let's flick it over to that one. Apologies for the technical issues at the start. But hopefully this will all be good. I will see. We have got the 8 hours. This Saturday there is an 8 hours from Watkins Glen from us here at Toga. So keep an eye open for that one. We shall see that where that is the latest round of the Endurance Cup. So that should be a good one for everybody there. Then there is the and then I will just double check what is going on. I think that is it for this week. There's nothing too major going on this week for that. We do have the Toga Motorsport are doing British touring cars.
Green line, give it all you got.
So that will be good fun on Assetto Corsa. That starts on the 3rd of November. Also, don't forget, like, subscribe, etc. Do all the useful YouTube algorithmy stuff. That always makes us feel warm and fuzzy. Similarly, there are memberships on the memberships through Toga Motorsport website itself. That will mean from as little as £1 a month. It will mean you get bonus entries and things to giveaways. There's a few special things that we do for members. Occasionally you'll see members only races, etc. And again, it just helps to keep the lights on here at Toga, keeps the servers ticking over, keeps everything running. So go check that out. Everything will be down in the appropriate places in the description. And I think that is, if there's nobody else here, I'm going to call it a night. And see all of you probably on Saturday for the 8 hours of Watkins Glen. Good night, and thank you very much.